Rewire your brain for unstoppable motivation. Let me tell you something uncomfortable but liberating. You're not unmotivated. You're simply programmed wrong. You weren't born lazy. You weren't born tired. Your mind was just taught to serve fear, comfort, and excuses, and not your potential. But what if I told you you could rewire your brain, literally reprogram it, to crave discipline, hunger for progress, and ignite every morning with purpose? This isn't theory. This is science. This is life transformation. And if you grasp what's in this message and act on it, your motivation will no longer depend on mood, energy, or emotion. It will become who you are. So don't just listen. Absorb this. Rebuild yourself with this. Watch until the end. And you won't recognize the person you were at the start. Your brain is not a fixed machine. It's a dynamic system, a living processor constantly shaped by what you feed it. The truth is, you are not stuck. You are not broken. You are not doomed to live with low energy, lack of drive, or a scattered mindset. You are simply running an outdated program, and just like any software, it can be rewritten. It must be rewritten if you want to live at your highest potential. Here's the uncomfortable truth that most people avoid. Your life looks like your dominant thoughts. Whatever ideas you allow to take root in your mind eventually become the engine behind your decisions, your mood, and your motivation. If your thoughts are filled with excuses, fear, and doubt, your motivation will always be temporary. You'll start strong and fade fast. You'll have moments of fire, but seasons of fog. But when your mind is trained to feed on purpose, resilience, and forward momentum, you become unstoppable. Not just for a day, but for a lifetime. Most people are unaware of how powerful their thought patterns truly are. They speak negatively about themselves as a joke. They entertain worst-case scenarios like it's responsible thinking, and they consume messages through media, conversations, even music, that reinforce their limits. They don't realize that every word they hear and every thought they dwell on is like a seed being planted. And your brain, like rich soil, will grow whatever you consistently plant. Be honest. Garbage in, garbage out. Greatness in, greatness out. The problem isn't always that you don't have motivation. The problem is that your thoughts are attacking your motivation before it even has a chance to rise. You can't expect to think like a failure and live like a champion. The mind doesn't work that way. You are constantly programming your brain through repetition. Repetition of words, repetition of emotions, repetition of focus. The thoughts you allow, especially when they are consistent, start forming neural pathways. Those pathways shape your habits. Your habits shape your actions, and your actions write the story of your life. This is why the most important work you'll ever do isn't external, it's internal. It's the work of catching negative thoughts and replacing them. It's the work of building a mental routine where your mind automatically returns to power, not panic, to progress, not procrastination. And yes, it takes effort. Reprogramming anything takes effort. But the alternative is worse. Staying stuck in cycles of low energy, wasted time, and unfulfilled potential. Let me ask you this. What have you been repeatedly thinking about this past week? Were those thoughts planting courage or planting fear? Were you focused on what's possible or stuck in everything that's gone wrong? Because the answers to those questions will explain why you either feel driven or defeated. If you want unstoppable motivation, you must become intentional about what you feed your brain. Speak life over your vision. Consume content that aligns with your purpose. Cut out toxic environments that poison your mindset. And above all, repeat the truth until your brain starts to believe it. Not just once, not just when you're feeling good, but every single day, until the program running your life is built for victory, not survival. Your brain is programmable. That means your future is too. The only question is, what are you programming it with? People often say, I just don't feel motivated. But the truth is, motivation was never designed to be something you feel before you act. It was designed to be something you build by acting. Motivation is not an emotional spark that randomly shows up to rescue you. It's a system you construct. It's a discipline you train. And the moment you understand this, you stop waiting, you start creating. We live in a culture that romanticizes the idea of motivation, as if the most successful people in the world wake up every day bursting with energy and drive. But that's not the reality. The reality is, the most motivated people are often the most disciplined. They've learned that motivation is a byproduct, not a prerequisite. They don't rely on mood swings or the weather or their feelings to move forward. They rely on systems, on structure, on showing up even when it's hard. Here's what most people get wrong. They wait to feel inspired before they take action. But action is what generates inspiration. It's movement that creates momentum. It's showing up and doing the work, even when you don't feel like it. That wakes up something inside you. You train your brain to associate effort with reward. And over time, your mind starts to crave that feeling of progress. That's when motivation becomes natural. Not because you waited for it, but because you worked for it. Discipline is the soil where motivation grows. When you commit to certain habits every day, you're sending a signal to your brain, this is who I am now. I'm not someone who waits. I'm someone who does. And as your identity shifts, so does your energy. You no longer ask, do I feel like it today? You say, this is what I do, period. That consistency becomes your power. That routine becomes your source of inner fire. Because now, you're not chasing motivation. You've become the kind of person who creates it on command. Think about it. How many goals have died because you waited to feel ready? How many dreams were delayed because you didn't feel like it yet? If you keep living by feeling, you'll stay trapped in cycles of delay, distraction, and defeat. But when you build your life on discipline, you begin to create motivation regardless of your circumstances. Rain or shine, good mood or bad. You train your mind to obey your values, not your emotion. The difference between ordinary and extraordinary people is not talent. It's not luck. It's that extraordinary people do what ordinary people won't do consistently. They don't look for motivation, they build it. Brick by brick, habit by habit. They trust the process. They embrace the boring work. They honor the small wins. And in doing so, they light a fire that becomes harder and harder to put out. This is the real secret. The most driven people are not the most hyped. They are the most committed. They know that feelings come and go, but discipline endures. And through that discipline, motivation becomes a renewable resource. Not something you chase, but something you carry within you. So stop waiting for the perfect day, the perfect mood, or the perfect spark. They may never come. But discipline, that you can start today. You can control your time. You can show up. You can take one step. And from that step, motivation will rise, not as a miracle, but as a reward. You don't need to feel motivated to get started. But once you start, the motivation will come. Every time. Because motivation isn't a gift, it's a consequence. A consequence of discipline. One of the biggest lies people believe is that they have to wait until everything makes sense before they move. That they need to have a perfect plan, a crystal clear vision, or a full guarantee before they take the first step. But that's not how progress works. That's not how breakthroughs happen. The truth is, clarity doesn't come before action. If you wait for clarity before you act, you'll be waiting your entire life. The path does not appear fully lit from the beginning. You move first, and then the light follows your steps. You don't discover purpose by sitting still. You discover purpose by moving forward. Even if the path is messy, confusing, or incomplete, you step and then you see. You try and then you learn. You build momentum and then you gain understanding. Far too many people are stuck in analysis paralysis. They overthink, they second guess, they wait for a sign, a perfect condition, or someone to give them permission. But all of that waiting turns into delay, and delay becomes regret. What they don't realize is that the process of moving, of starting the project, writing the first line, having the conversation, applying for the opportunity, is the very thing that will open the door to clarity. Action brings feedback. Feedback brings adjustment, and adjustment brings clarity. That's the formula, and it's far more powerful than waiting for the perfect answer to fall into your lap. Some people spend years preparing, planning, vision boarding, and still never move. Others start scared, unsure, imperfect, but they end up miles ahead because they were willing to begin without having it all figured out. You don't need all the answers to start. You just need enough courage to take the next small step. That's where the magic happens. In the doing, in the movement, in the faith it takes to walk through the fog, even when you can't see the finish line. The more you move, the more you see. The more you act, the more you understand. Life rewards those who are willing to walk with uncertainty. Clarity is not a gift that comes before you begin. It is the reward you earn by committing to motion. You start the business and you learn what works. You write the book and your voice gets clearer. You speak up and your confidence grows. You try, fail, try again, and suddenly the road that once looked impossible becomes familiar ground. But that only happens through action. Stop waiting for the moment when everything will make perfect sense. That moment may never arrive. And even if it did, it wouldn't carry the power of what you'd gain by just starting. Most of the people you admire didn't have clarity when they began. They had curiosity, courage, and the willingness to take the first step. And that first step opened the door to the next. So what's the step in front of you that you've been avoiding? What action have you postponed while telling yourself you're just waiting for the right time? The truth is, this is the right time. And even if you stumble, even if you don't have all the answers, every step you take is shaping your understanding. Every decision you make, even the imperfect ones, is preparing you for the clarity you seek. Clarity is earned. It's not given. So don't let the fear of not knowing stop you from becoming who you're meant to be. Move first. Clarity will catch up. You can have the best intentions in the world. You can want to be disciplined, focused, courageous, and consistent. But your brain doesn't follow what you want. It follows what you repeat. It doesn't change because of what you hope for. It changes because of what you practice daily. The brain is a programmable system. Every time you repeat a thought, a behavior, or a routine, you're reinforcing a neural pathway. Think of it like carving a groove into a piece of wood. The more times you trace that line, the deeper and more automatic it becomes. And eventually, you don't even have to try. It becomes your default. That's how habits are built. That's how identity is formed, not by the occasional burst of inspiration, but by the quiet power of repetition. Most people struggle not because they lack desire, but because they lack consistent reinforcement. They intend to be productive, but they reinforce procrastination. They intend to be confident, but they reinforce self-doubt by what they tell themselves every morning. They intend to be disciplined, but they reinforce comfort by choosing distraction over progress. And what you reinforce, whether intentionally or not, becomes your reality. If you want to rewire your brain for unstoppable motivation, you have to make motivation a habit, not a hope. You have to flood your mind with positive, empowering patterns every single day, not just when you feel good, but especially when you don't. Because the repetition you choose in your hardest moments is the repetition that defines you. The good news is your brain is not fixed. It's moldable, changeable, reprogrammable, but it requires intentional repetition. You can't say, "I'm focused," once a month and expect results. You have to live like a focused person, speak like one, move like one, over and over. That's how your brain learns, through patterns, not promises. So ask yourself, what are you feeding your brain daily? What thoughts, habits, and environments are you exposing it to? Because those inputs are shaping your internal wiring. If you're always reinforcing fear, your brain becomes a fear machine. If you're always reinforcing doubt, your brain becomes a doubt factory. But if you start reinforcing belief, discipline, hunger, and forward motion, your brain starts transforming into a place where motivation thrives automatically. Repetition isn't glamorous, but it's powerful. It's the reason top athletes, leaders, and high performers do the same routines day after day. Not because it's easy, but because it builds mental structure. It trains the brain to enter a flow state faster. It programs discipline as a natural reflex, not a struggle. And that's what sets successful people apart. They've rewired themselves through consistency. You don't have to feel ready. You don't have to know every step. You just have to decide what kind of brain you want to build, and then feed it with repeated action that aligns with that vision. You want to be bold? Then do bold things every day, no matter how small. You want to be focused? Remove distractions and repeat focus until it feels normal. You want to be motivated? Then surround yourself with motivation and act on it consistently until your brain knows nothing else. This is how transformation works. It's not one dramatic moment. It's not one big change. It's 100 small decisions, repeated until your brain stops resisting and starts adapting. Repetition is your superpower. Not hype, not emotion, not waiting. Repetition. You don't need a new intention, you need new repetition. Do it until it becomes you. There will be days when you wake up and feel unstoppable, full of energy, focus, and purpose. But there will also be days when you wake up feeling nothing. No drive, no clarity, no emotion to push you forward. And if you're depending on motivation to carry you, you're going to fall short over and over again. Because motivation is a feeling, and feelings are inconsistent. They rise and fall with your mood, your environment, your hormones, your sleep. You can't build a meaningful life on a foundation that's shaky. What actually carries you through, the force that keeps showing up even when you don't feel like it, is discipline. Discipline is what steps in when emotion steps out. It's not about being excited. It's about being committed. It's about doing what needs to be done regardless of how you feel. Motivation may get you started, but only discipline will carry you across the finish line. That's why so many people start strong and fade quickly. They rely on bursts of excitement to move. They chase emotional highs to act. But the moment it gets hard, boring, or uncomfortable, they stop. Not because they're incapable, but because they never built the discipline to continue. They assumed motivation would always be there, but it won't. You need something deeper than hype. You need structure. You need rhythm. You need discipline. Discipline is the quiet force that shows up in the dark. It doesn't make noise. It doesn't demand attention. It just keeps going. It's the reason some people succeed even when they're tired, unmotivated, or overwhelmed, because they've trained themselves to move no matter what. They've made consistency a lifestyle, not a feeling. Think about it. Some of the greatest breakthroughs in history didn't come on someone's best day. They came on the days they didn't feel like trying. The days they showed up anyway. The days they pushed when no one was watching, when no one was clapping, and when everything inside them said, quit. That's where greatness lives, in the trenches of repetition, not in the highs of inspiration. And here's the truth, discipline is not natural at first. It feels heavy, it feels forced, but the more you honor it, the easier it gets. It's like a muscle. The more you train it, the stronger it becomes. You stop needing to be motivated. You stop waiting for the perfect moment. You start becoming the kind of person who gets things done regardless of mood or comfort. Do you want to know what separates the average from the exceptional? It's not talent. It's not luck. It's discipline. The willingness to keep going when nothing in you feels like moving. The mindset that says, I don't need to feel good to do good. That's power. That's maturity. That's how results are built, one disciplined day at a time. So if you're sitting there waiting for the motivation to return before you move, stop. Take action now. Start small, but start. The more you rely on motivation, the more powerless you become. But the more you lean into discipline, the more unstoppable you become. Emotions will fail you, but habits will save you. Hype fades, but consistency builds legacy. Train yourself to show up anyway. Train yourself to follow through. Train yourself to rise even when you don't feel ready. Because if you only move when you feel like it, you'll miss everything you are capable of becoming. But if you master discipline, you won't need to feel ready. You'll already be on the move. Your energy doesn't exist in isolation. It's not just about what's in your mind, but what's around your life. You may have big dreams, strong goals, and a powerful vision, but if the environment around you is full of chaos, laziness, or negativity, it will quietly begin to corrode your fire from the inside out. You don't even notice it at first. But over time, the noise, the distractions, the unspoken discouragement, the low standards, they start pulling you down. You see, your mind is like soil, and whatever is planted in that soil eventually grows. If you constantly surround yourself with small-minded people, you'll start thinking small. If you're always in rooms where excuses are normal, where goals are mocked, where effort is optional, it's only a matter of time before you start mirroring that energy. Not because you're weak, but because we become what we absorb. Your environment isn't just where you live. It's what lives in you. If you're serious about rewiring your brain for unstoppable motivation, then you need to protect your space like your life depends on it. Because it does. Every conversation you engage in, every voice you listen to, every piece of content you consume, every habit you normalize, these things are not neutral. They are shaping your belief system, your mindset, your emotional state, and ultimately your drive. People underestimate the power of proximity. You can have all the motivation in the world, but if you keep placing yourself in environments filled with chaos, emotionally unstable people, constant crisis, cluttered spaces, and undisciplined rhythms, it starts draining your focus. And when your focus is drained, your motivation collapses. You don't rise by willpower alone, you rise by design. And that design starts with your environment. Ask yourself, does the room you spend your time in inspire clarity or confusion? Do the people you speak to push you higher or pull you into cycles of doubt and stagnation? Is your environment helping you grow or keeping you comfortably average? Because you can't soar in a cage. You can't build a lion's mindset in a room full of sheep. If you want to live at a higher level, you need to spend time in higher places. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do isn't to try harder, but to move. Change the room, change the routine, change the standard. And the moment you elevate your environment, your mind starts following. Energy is contagious. Focus is contagious. Hunger is contagious. When you surround yourself with people who are relentless, disciplined, intentional, you stop making excuses. You start rising to that level without even realizing it. But the opposite is also true. Sit in negativity long enough, and your belief system begins to shrink. Be around laziness long enough, and effort begins to feel optional. Stay in chaos long enough, and disorder begins to feel like normal life. Don't let your dreams decay because you're planted in the wrong soil. Relocate, redesign, rebuild. Because if you don't shape your environment will shape you, and it won't ask for permission. You owe it to your future to protect your energy. You owe it to your calling to cut off what's draining your drive. Motivation doesn't survive in toxic places. It thrives in alignment. So, align your life. Clean your space. Distance yourself from people who confuse movement with progress. Find spaces where excellence is the standard, where purpose is spoken fluently, where growth is expected, not celebrated occasionally. That's where your motivation finds oxygen. That's where your brain rewires with strength, focus, and fire. One of the greatest lies holding people back is the belief that they need to feel ready before they start. Ready to launch that idea, ready to change their life, ready to speak, build, move, or lead. But here's the truth. If you wait until you feel ready, you'll be waiting for the rest of your life. Because readiness isn't a feeling that arrives. It's a state you create through movement. Action builds readiness. Action builds clarity. Action builds confidence. Think about it. How many times have you held yourself back, not because you couldn't do something, but because you didn't feel prepared enough, smart enough, perfect enough? That hesitation becomes a habit. And over time, it steals momentum, opportunity, and growth. The problem is, you're trying to feel your way into motion, but that's backward. You move first, then the feelings catch up. You act, and then the belief begins to grow. Readiness is not a prerequisite, it's a byproduct. You don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to feel certain. You just need to start. Take the first step. Speak even if your voice shakes. Begin even if it's messy. The most powerful transformations in life rarely start with confidence. They start with courage. Courage to begin when it's uncomfortable. Courage to walk forward even when doubt whispers. Courage to choose progress over perfection. The people you admire, the ones making impact and living with purpose, didn't wait to feel ready. They moved in faith. They took imperfect steps. They failed, learned, and kept going. And with every step, they became more prepared. Not because they waited for the moment, but because they stepped into it and grew within it. You don't need permission. You don't need perfection. You need movement. Every time you hesitate, you hand your power to fear. But every time you act, you train your brain to lead. So stop waiting for a green light that only appears after the journey begins. You are more ready than you think. And what you lack right now will be built as you go. Momentum is the reward of motion. So move now. The moment your mind stops chasing comfort and starts chasing calling, everything changes. Pleasure is fleeting. It gives you a quick high, a moment of escape, a temporary thrill, but it never lasts. That's why most people stay stuck. They keep looking for motivation in what feels good, scrolling, snacking, sleeping, escaping. But true, lasting motivation doesn't come from comfort. It comes from conviction, and that conviction is born out of purpose. Purpose, you become proactive. You wake up with intention. You move with direction. You're not led by your emotions, you're led by a mission. Purpose reprograms your thoughts, your habits, your choices. It gives your life structure. It gives your actions weight. There's something powerful about waking up every day and knowing why you're doing what you're doing. Purpose doesn't always feel good, but it always produces something good. It pushes you past excuses. It silences procrastination. It fuels the discipline required to keep showing up, even when nobody's watching, even when you're tired, even when it's hard. And that kind of mindset, that's how motivation becomes permanent. You stop asking, do I feel like it today? And start declaring, this must be done. That switch in thinking is the rewiring process. It's not about removing pleasure from life. It's about putting it in the right place. Purpose first. Pleasure follows. And when you live that way, motivation no longer needs to be forced. it flows naturally. You're not chasing motivation anymore. It lives inside of you. Rewire your mind to stop living for the weekend, for the escape, for the reward. Live for the reason, live for the vision, live for the impact. That's when motivation becomes consistent, not a fire that burns out, but a fire that burns within. Because when your life is anchored in purpose, your actions are unstoppable. Your brain is not your enemy, it's your engine. But you must take the wheel. Stop waiting for inspiration, start designing it. Because the moment you rewire your mind for strength, clarity, and purpose, nothing can stop you, not doubt, not failure, not fear. And that right there is where your unstoppable life begins.